views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the guests appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of 8 News Now or Nexstar Media Group.
Because the reputation of the industry here is a direct reflection on the state of Nevada itself.
Tonight on Politics Now, Nevada's top marijuana regulator tells us why he's focusing on character as he starts his new job.
If the public perception is what it is, it might be time to get rid of it.
The I-Team's Vanessa Murphy looks at a push to ban Metro Police from using a neck restraint many other agencies have already abandoned. And special session in Carson City. Nevada lawmakers head back to the Capitol, hoping to solve the coronavirus budget woes.
From 8 News Now, this is Politics Now.
Happy Independence Day, and thank you very much for joining us here on Politics Now. I'm John Langler. Well, the 4th of July is going to be a little different this year. There are still going to be fireworks, that's for sure. Here is some video from one of last year's shows. No Independence Day parade this year, however. But as you celebrate our country's 244th birthday, a friendly reminder, please do so safely. Once the holiday weekend is over, Nevada lawmakers have to really get to work. The legislature starts a special session on Wednesday to start tackling next year's budget. The public is not going to be allowed in the Capitol building, but the Legislative Council Bureau says there will be ways to chime in. A limited amount of media will be allowed, and one of those media members, 8 News Now. We will be in Carson City to cover the special session. Lawmakers will focus on trying to fix next year's $1.3 billion budget hole caused by the coronavirus shutdowns. About $900 million of that deficit is from the general fund, and the rest is K-12 education. There has been some discussion about taking up police reform bills as well. That has not been decided yet, though. Before the session starts, Governor Steve Sisolak will make a formal proclamation setting the parameters for what legislators can discuss and what they can take action on. In southern Nevada, an effort is now underway to address the surge in coronavirus cases within the Hispanic community. Now, you can see on this map here the areas shaded in the darker red. Those are areas experiencing more coronavirus cases than any other part of the valley, mainly the East Valley and sort of Sunrise Manor. Now, this campaign aims to educate and increase testing in the Northeast and East Las Vegas parts of the valley. New Spanish language commercials and informational materials being released on the coronavirus. And a new Spanish website provides guidance for the Hispanic community.
It is in your hands. It is an initiative to educate everyone, but in particular our Hispanic community, about the alarming and devastating rates of COVID-19 here in Las Vegas that we are seeing that are disproportionately impacting our Latino community.
Testing is hard to come by on the east side. Transportation to those test sites is a challenge. Clark County School District and the Southern Nevada Health District are hosting test sites on select Fridays and Saturdays throughout July. And the first of these will be July 10th and 11th at Courtney Middle School. You can find the other locations on the campaign's website, and we have a link to that over at 8newsnow.com. We're finally getting a picture of inspections done by the state at Nevada's casinos and resorts. The Gaming Control Board reports 111 open cases of casinos not following coronavirus rules. The Gaming Control Board has done more than 7,400 inspections of gaming license holders, and that averages out to about 3 inspections per licensee in June. Nevada OSHA says it has done 259 field observations since June 26th. About 85% of businesses were following the coronavirus-related directives. This week, some evictions were allowed to restart here in Nevada. Governor Steve Sisolak is gradually lifting the moratorium caused by the coronavirus. Dawn Jensen from Nevada Legal Services says evictions for non-payments, lease violations, and other nuisances, they can start August 1st, and she expects some notices can start even sooner.
The way I understand the directive is that 7-day pay rent or quits, which would probably be the most popular form of eviction, are not supposed to begin until September 1st.
Jensen recommends trying a payment plan, and if you do, make sure you get it in writing. Las Vegas's isolation complex for the homeless battling the COVID-19 pandemic. That place over at Cashman Center is now closed. It opened back on April 13th, served 245 people. Clark County says 22 patients had the coronavirus and recovered. The county also says it provided 2,200 individual nights of observation. The Black Lives Matter movement and nationwide protests have spurred calls for police reform nationwide. Here in southern Nevada, the lateral vascular neck restraint in particular is under scrutiny. The I-Team's Vanessa Murphy takes a closer look.
2 weeks before a series of Black Lives Matter protests in Las Vegas, the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department updated its use of force policy.
It's not practical. It looks good on paper, but it's not practical.
Officers are allowed to use the lateral vascular neck restraint, or LVNR, if a person's actions are assaultive, meaning extremely aggressive or life-threatening. Cities like Miami have banned LVNR, something the ACLU of Nevada is calling for also. Sherry Royster is the legal director.
We would like to see that removed.
This is an LVNR demonstrated by the National Law Enforcement Training Center. This video aired in a CBS News report in 2014.
We're talking bilateral compression on the sides of the neck. You'll notice that Derek's captured Wes's balance to the rear. He's got him off balance. It makes it extremely difficult for Wes to resist.
I know that officers across the country have said that it's not a chokehold. You know, there's always questions because it looks exactly the same.
Royster says it's just too risky.
They shouldn't even put themselves in a position where they are possibly taking a life, because that's what could happen.
In 2009, 29-year-old Dustin Boone died after he struggled with Metro Police and an officer applied an LVNR. While his death was ruled a homicide and through the county's investigatory process, the death was considered excusable. Boone's family was awarded a $1 million settlement. The ACLU raised questions then.
It should raise eyebrows. It should raise questions. It should raise the matter of is this the best possible way of handling these kinds of situations?
In Fort Wayne, Indiana last year, LVNR was suspended following the hospitalization of 2 officers after the neck restraint was used during training.
The one officer who left training on Monday was treated as a hurt on duty type status.
According to Metro, the use of LVNR has decreased from 51 in 2016 to 21 in 2019. Its effectiveness has fluctuated as low as 55% in 2017 to 86% the next year.
If you are close enough to someone who is a suspect to wrap your arms around their neck, then it seems like there are other mechanisms that you could use to detain them.
While the Clark County Commission has oversight of Metro, the legislature could make statewide changes. Assemblyman Tom Roberts spent more than 24 years at Metro, retiring as an assistant sheriff.
It just wasn't a technique that I used, and it is very seldomly used.
He says taking away a method used by officers shouldn't be taken lightly, but he is open to change.
That is used prior to deadly force and is really not considered deadly force if properly applied. But if the public perception is what it is, it might be time to get rid of it.
I think that if applied correctly part is what makes this so important.
Vanessa Murphy, 8 News Now.
We do have a link to Metro Police's new use of force policy over at 8newsnow.com. And we did check in with other departments here in southern Nevada to find out what their policy is for LVNR. Nevada Highway Patrol, North Las Vegas Police, and Henderson Police do not allow it. Some new laws kicked in on July 1st earlier in the week, so here are some highlights of the new laws that are now in effect. Minimum wage went up to $8 an hour with health benefits, $9 an hour without health benefits, and it will incrementally go up until it hits $12 an hour in 2024. 16 and 17-year-olds can now complete defensive driving courses instead of the 50 hours of supervised driving for their licenses. The payday loan database is also being created. If someone already has a loan out in the database, then another company has to cap a second loan at 25% of their gross monthly income. That is a new Nevada law. Also, a data security bill keeps internet providers to schools for using that info to target students with ads. They also have to tell the school if there's been a breach. And now on marijuana, the Cannabis Compliance Board officially started this week. It'll help create rules to regulate Nevada's marijuana industry. Also, new testing and regulations for hemp and CBD products is being created, and this will likely be the job of the CCB. Right now, CBD products are very unregulated compared to other parts of that industry. Coming up next year on Politics Now, making marijuana safer.
Making sure that we have a good idea of what products out there and that the testing is uniform between all of the labs.
The new top man at the Cannabis Control Board tells us where he envisions the board making changes.
Welcome back to Politics Now.
Nevada's new Cannabis Compliance Board officially started this week. It's modeled after the Gaming Control Board and will regulate the marijuana industry. Our Kirsten Joyce spoke with the executive director, Tyler Climass, about what we can expect.
What will you be doing differently?
So what you'll see now with the CCB in place is likely a refocus on truly the public policy that was laid out by the governor and the legislature when they passed AB 533, which established the Cannabis Compliance Board. And that public policy really allows the board and wills the board to be much stricter with licensees when appropriate. It asks for an emphasis on protecting the public health and safety of Nevadans and visitors to our state. It wants to see the industry be inclusive, right? And so the industry to be representative of the communities that it serves. And then I think likely most important is a focus on the character of the individuals that are in the industry and those that want to come into the industry to make sure that we keep a close eye on our reputation.
How will random product sampling and lab tests be handled?
Well, we've had some lab issues in the past, and so I think that's something that the board is going to look to tackle as soon as they can. You'll see some of the regulations that are up for adoption at the end of this month, as I spoke of. Regulation 11 deals with laboratory testing, and you see some enhancements in there already. But going forward, it's something that is going to be top of mind for this board and for staff as we go out there. Again, to make sure at the end of the day, the highest quality and the safest product is out there.
There were some issues in the past with some recalled products. How do you plan to tackle that moving forward?
Sure, and that comes down to good inspections, good auditing, and good policies and regulations in place. I can tell you in the last 6 months, we've done a number of enforcement actions that have been public. We've seen our results bring back a little bit some of the test results, some of the higher THC. We're actually seeing our enforcement actions have a very positive effect. Now, we still have a long way to go, but I think what you'll also see is the board publishing and making public a lot more information that we previously did not. And I think that just allows everyone to have insight into what's going on and certainly allows us to have stronger enforcement capabilities.
Well, the first board meeting is July 21st, and Governor Sisolak still has 2 empty spots on that board that he needs to fill. You can watch the full interview at 8newsnow.com. Coming up next on 8 News Now, will nuclear testing resume here in Nevada? I speak with Senator Catherine Cortez Masto about her bill to make sure President Trump gets congressional approval first. Plus,
I'm Alexandra Limon in Washington. Democrats say their infrastructure plan contains all of the things President Trump wanted. Coming up, I'll tell you why the president is threatening to veto.
Partner of the Las Vegas Raiders.
On the heels of the Trump administration saying it was considering testing the nation's nuclear stockpile in the Nevada desert, Senator Catherine Cortez Masto is introducing new legislation in Congress. I spoke with her about the No Nuclear Testing Without Approval Act.
First of all, what was the impetus behind this? Why now? Why bring this on Capitol Hill?
Yeah, because we were hearing from the administration, particularly President Trump, talking about starting up explosive nuclear testing again. And as we all know in Nevada, we are the only site for that type of testing to take place. And my concern, I think many of us in the entire delegation, including our leaders and our state leaders, not just now, but in the past in a bipartisan way, we don't want nuclear testing, explosive nuclear testing to happen again in Nevada. Last time we did any type of testing was in 1992. And really, the scientists at the national labs, all of the information reports that I have seen do not require explosive nuclear testing. So this bill is simply to require any president, whether it's this one or any future president, if they want to go down that path, they have to come to Congress first. They have to notify Congress, get approval from Congress so that we can weigh in the process. And then the decision itself has to show two things, either a technical need or it's necessary for national security.
Does the U.S. need nuclear testing? Does the military need to start resurrecting that again?
No, and that's why this is really for the administration to even make that statement clearly. Did not understand what is happening now with our nuclear stockpile. And that's the importance of the NNSA and the site that we have in Nevada where the nuclear stockpile is. There's some critical experiments going on that can already test the safety and reliability of our nuclear stockpile. There is no need for explosive nuclear testing to even occur.
You can watch the full interview with Senator Cortez Masto over at 8newsnow.com. Nevada's Congresswoman Dina Titus says she wants to look at sanctions against Russia if reports that bounties were paid for the murder of U.S. troops are accurate.
This is a basic responsibility of the commander-in-chief to keep our troops safe. And when you just poo-poo it, or you don't read it, or you don't understand it, or you ignore it, then that puts them in jeopardy, and that threatens our national security.
Well, the Democrat, Congresswoman Titus, sits on the Foreign Affairs Committee, and she says she has not been briefed on the reports of these bounties being paid. CBS News and other outlets have reported Afghan officials tell them Russia was involved in taking out bounties on U.S. soldiers. President Trump called those reports a hoax and says he was never briefed on it. The debates over monuments, statues, and which ones should be taken down still raging nationwide. Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden answered questions about it for the first time this week. Now, he was in favor of taking down Confederate statues, but he drew the line at some leaders like former President Thomas Jefferson.
They may have things in their past that are now and then distasteful, but that's a judgment for the country. So, for example, taking down, toppling Christopher Columbus statue or George Washington statue or et cetera, I think that is something that the government has an opportunity and a responsibility to protect.
President Trump has called for strong penalties against people who vandalize or tear down statues on federal land.